Hello and welcome to ERPWebTutor.com. In this video, we are going to introduce you to the Fusion compensation module. Now, this will be followed by a series of videos and tutorials on the different configuration aspect of this module. But it is always a good idea to actually know a little bit about the product, its capabilities, its highlights, and the overall uh, objective of this course before we actually get into the hands-on. So that's the reason why we have this introduction to the module and what we are going to cover as a part of this course. So the course objective, so what should you be able to do after you complete this course? You should be able to configure the fundamental configuration components related to Fusion compensation, such as elements, salary basis, eligibility profiles, etc. So there are some fundamental configurations that is not just related to compensation, but it's the fundamentals and the backbone of the overall compensation module. So when we talk about compensation in Oracle, we know that elements are the backbone for that. Okay, so we need to know how to create elements. Salary basis is used in the compensation module, so we need to know how to create salary basis. Okay, and also eligibility profiles. A lot of the EBS stuff was handled using element links, and that was how you would determine the eligibility. But in Fusion, a lot of the somebody's eligibility to be on a particular plan is handled using the eligibility profiles. So before, the eligibility profiles were primarily used in the benefits module, but now that has expanded to a lot of other modules, including absence, payroll, compensation. So the eligibility profile is very important, and then you will end up configuring a lot of eligibility profiles. Then you will be able to understand the different roles related to Fusion compensation. So we will talk about the various roles. As you know, the Fusion is all roles driven, so instead of the responsibilities. So if you're not familiar with that, we recommend that you cover at least the basics on the roles. So you'll be able to know about the roles that we use in Fusion compensation. We will not take a deep dive into what roles are, but we're going to show you what are the related roles for the compensation module. And you'll also be able to configure and test workforce compensation plans, configure and test individual compensation plans. So the workforce compensation plans is for mass allocation or mass recommendation planning, whereas for individual compensation plans are for individuals. You should be able to configure the total compensation statements, and you'll be able to run various batch processes for Fusion compensation module. So again, when we get into all those topics, we will cover all these different areas. So it's actually, this topic is going to be broken down into four key areas. One would be the fundamental setups, like, just to show you how to create elements, salary basis. Then the next one would be the workforce compensation. Then we will have the individual compensation, and then finally the total compensation statements. So the overall course will be broken down into these four areas. Now, this something I would like to mention, that all recordings and this course is built based on release 9. There have been some changes in release 10. So we will try to add some more lessons on what are the changes moving forward. So as you know that Oracle is coming up with new releases with a lot of enhancements and very good features in the upcoming releases. So we will continue to highlight some of the changes that has been brought in the next releases. But overall, there's no fundamental changes. You can pretty much configure most of it if you in release 10 if you complete this course. So that's just something that I wanted to let everybody know. So if you're taking this course, so this is based on release 9. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about the product highlights. So we know that Fusion compensation is a module within the HCM cloud. So let's see what are some of the special features of this module. So it delivers the flexibility to build from simple to highly complex reward systems for global organizations while providing simplified decision making and consistent messaging to your workforce. Okay, it's a one sentence, but it actually covers a lot. Now you can use Fusion compensation to do some simple worksheet, allocations, and you can also handle a lot of complex formula, that kind of stuff using this particular module. And what it means by simplified decision making, because from a manager's or a user's perspective, this module is very easy and simple to use. Okay, they can just go into something called the worksheet and then they can do all kinds of recommendations for their employees. This is from the manager's perspective. So it is a very simplified decision making tool. Okay, and consistent messaging to your workforce. It has a lot of features like the total compensation statements, the overall compensation statements, which can be configured. So you can very well communicate about the overall recommendations that is being done using this compensation module. Okay, it is very tightly integrated with the Fusion Global Human Resources and Talent Management. So you can get the data from the core HR or global HR module. You can also get feed from the talent management module, especially if you're having the performance rating. You can actually pull the entire performance document onto the compensation module, and if that is the criteria, especially if you already have the talent management module implemented, the managers would definitely like to get the ratings, the performance ratings from the performance management module and use that as a decision point for doing their recommendations. So it is very tightly integrated. Okay. It can be implemented in a coexistence model with other legacy HR systems. So as we said, it's tightly integrated with global human resource and talent. What if you don't have implemented those modules? A lot of the clients are now trying, to use one or two modules before they, get into the entire HCM suite. That's the reason why this coexistence model exists in the cloud, and compensation is one module which is very successful in this coexistence model. Okay. The ability to handle mass compensation recommendation using workforce compensation. So we mentioned about the workforce compensation, and you can use the mass compensation recommendations for a group of individuals. So using that workforce compensation, and then you have the ability to perform one-off awards to employees using the individual compensation. Okay, so you have both. So for one or two individuals, somebody getting a spot bonus or a joining bonus, you don't need to build a mass workforce compensation plan. You can use the individual compensation to award to give such awards. Then you have the ability to provide an overview of the total rewards using the total compensation statements. So a lot of information can be provided using the total compensation statement, starting from your salary, bonuses, the non-cash awards like shares, stocks, and if there's any vacation that you want to display, any kind of balances, your overall 401k contribution, the employer contributions. A lot of information can be provided to the employee. Okay, and again, that actually provides a very good overview of the total rewards that the employee might be willing to see as in year-end total rewards. And then it provides an Excel-like feature. Okay, managers and HR, they love Excel. Okay, because that's what they're used to in their daily lives. Okay, so this tool, the compensation worksheet, that's what we call, when we will configure that, we will see it has a lot of features that Excel has. You can freeze columns, you can rearrange columns, You can do some sorting. If you decide to hide some columns, a lot of Excel's features has been integrated into the worksheet. Okay, Oracle has really nailed it when it comes to the worksheet design. Of course, there are always room for improvement. Always you will find that client wants something that is not there in the product, but keep in mind this is a package solution, and I have to acknowledge that Oracle has done a commendable job in with this module. Okay, it really works great. Okay, so moving forward, effective ways to handle budgets and targets. So you have the option to design the budgets and targets as the managers. You can use models to design budgets and targets. These concepts of model were not um, there in the EBS. So that is something that has been brought in. So that's another excellent way of, you know, not using Excel. Totally, uh, you can do your entire recommendation planning on the worksheet itself because it's so much close to Excel. Okay, so you don't, and then especially the use of models that you can build and do some calculations, to come up with a budget. So using these models, so that is one area where the managers would tend to go to Excel and do some calculations. Now with the model functionality, even that kind of calculations can be done in the tool itself. Okay, uh, the ability to produce complex compensation statement that meets complex client requirements and matches legacy templates. So this is, we are talking about the compensation statements that can be produced out of the workforce compensation. So this is something like a PDF, the paper statement that the manager would like to provide to their employees based on their overall annual recommendation. And that is something that it could be signed by the manager and the employee as an acceptance. And this template, believe it or not, sometimes can be very tedious. It uses an RTF template. That's what, and you can pretty much achieve the exact look and feel that the client has. So, but again, it can become very complex at times depending on what kind of layout the client has. So designing this template can be very complex, but you can achieve pretty much any layout that your client provides. Okay, so all the fields that you have on your worksheet can be put on the statement, and that way you will be able to achieve whatever your client requirements are. It also provides the ability to handle complex approvals using the alternate manager hierarchy, secondary managers, additional reviewers, and department and position tree. Now, in release 9, you only had the managers and then the formula. But with release 10, there are some additional features like additional reviewers was not there in release 9. The secondary managers, you can have your project managers uh, provide some recommendations on the worksheet for certain companies if there's a such, there are some needs for that. And additional reviewers could be somebody that you have worked with, but the manager, your direct manager wants somebody else to review and provide some feedback. You can use the department and position tree also uh, when you are trying to display the hierarchy. Okay, so those can be used as well. It leverages the eligibility profiles to group employee population based on various factors. So be ready to create your eligibility profiles, especially if the client have different requirements for different group of employees. Let's say you have a different kind of worksheet for the sales team versus the marketing team. Okay, so you can use the eligibility profile to group these two population and then build separate plans for them. Okay, so eligibility profiles are going to be used in a lot of screens when we do the configuration. And last but not the least, which I've already mentioned, it is one of the most robust and stable Fusion HCM cloud product out there. So I have to acknowledge that is really, this Fusion compensation is an excellent tool, and the clients are really happy about it. And Oracle has done an excellent job with this particular module. And of course, the list goes on. It's not possible to bring every highlight, but we try to capture an overall essence of the product and what it does, and what you are going to learn out of this course. So as a part of the introduction, we will have a quick live demo. So which is just to give you an idea, an overview of how the screen looks like, where you need to go to do the configurations. This is not going to be a detailed configurations because those will be covered in our configuration courses. Actually, the configuration lessons that will follow after this. But this will just give you an overview of what you can do, where you will need to do that. Okay. So thanks for attending. And now we're going to go to the application and show you certain hands-on activities on the module. So here we are in the application. I'm going to navigate real slow so that you understand where you need to go. Now this is again the classic user interface. This is not the simplified user interface. The navigation could be slightly different when you're using the simplified UI. So from here, basically to go to the configuration screen, you first of all need to have the compensation administrator and the compensation manager role. So the compensation administrator role is for actual configurations like building the compensation plan, designing the worksheet, and compensation manager is more for running some of the processes. You can view the employees, you can do some processing of data for the employees, but you cannot really do anything with the plan configuration itself. So we are now logged in as an employee who has both compensation administrator and the manager responsibility. So to access the compensation area under your navigator, you should have something called compensation. Whether you're using release 9 or 10, you should see a link called compensation that should take you to the compensation work area. So I'm going to click on compensation. And here is where you need to come to do all your configuration. So for example, we talked about the salary basis. If you want to design and build the salary basis, if you already have the core HR or the global human resources in Fusion, probably somebody from the global human resource team would design the salary basis, and you don't need to. If you're doing a coexistence model, then you have to do the salary basis elements and all of that. Also, you need to do a lot of the core HR setups as well, because even for coexistence, the data needs to come and sit in the Fusion HR area so that the compensation can use it. Okay, but the only difference is that data in Fusion is not their system of record for the HR data. Okay, so then the next section we talked about the workforce compensation. You can this is where you need to go to create plans. So just creating on managing plan. Manage plans will show you all the plans that has been defined in the system, and you can create a new plan from here. And act as proxy manager allows the HR to proxy in as a line manager. So just by going into act as proxy, you can pretty much proxy in for any manager who has direct reports and has access to a particular plan. Okay, so that is a very nice feature that is heavily used in this module, this act as proxy. So you can see here I can go for all the different managers. So that way I can act on behalf of a particular manager. Okay, so that is a very nice feature. And then this is the run batch processes. This is what you're going to use to run the different processes. So if I go to run batch processes, you can see the start, refresh, transfer, back out, and then purge. Some of the batch processes that exists for the workforce compensation. We will definitely talk in details about these batch processes that exists. The next portion is the total compensation statements. So you can define the different compensation items, which could be monetary and non-monetary, and then finally use this compensation categories to categorize those items, and then finally use this manage statement definitions to build your statements using these categories. So you have a lot of flexibility that you can reorder how you want to display the statements. You can display graph, you can display some descriptive texts, you can use point to some URL outside to any third party um, website as a part of that the descriptive text. So you can have you can actually use that rich text editor that exists, especially for additional information that does not exist in Fusion. Okay, and same thing, you can the the compensation manager can generate the statement. They can view the statements that got generated, and then you have the individual compensation plans. So you can define the individual compensation plan. You can define the third party plans, and then of course using the managed compensation you will. So if you go to manage compensation, it will just give you the different compensation that has been awarded to employees. Okay, so the compensation managers can view that as well. You can also view the compensation history, and then finally the common configurations, the batch parameters, the eligibility profiles, the rating models. If you're using the performance, if you're not using performance rating and you're using Fusion compensation as the tool to provide the ratings, then you can define the ratings and use it in compensation. But if you are integrating it with Fusion performance management, some of these steps that you don't need to do. Actions and action reasons, again, every action in or every transaction in HCM, it is driven by some actions. So when some information goes from this compensation module, and you can define what are the actions, and if you want to add any action reasons for that, you can do that. Any lookups that are being used in the different fields, if you want to add or edit any lookup, you can do that. Derived factors, benefit balances, all of that you can do. Also manage elements, you can create your elements from there. Fast formulas as well, you can define your fast formulas. Balance definitions, user-defined tables. If you want to store certain information in the user-defined tables, you can use that, because again, that is something that can be used. So you define some values in the user-defined tables and refer those in the fast formulas, and you can display them into the worksheet as well. Okay, and then grades and grade rates. The worksheet in the workforce compensation can pull in the grades and grade rates that are tied to the salary or also for the employee. So that is something that is used by the compensation module, and that is the reason you see this under the common configuration. So these are not like restricted to compensation module, but can be used by other payroll or global HR modules, performance modules, but these are also these can be also done in the compensation module. That's why you see them under the common configuration. So this is basically where you do all the configurations, and then the employees or the managers also can go to some on their managed resources or the manager resources and award individual compensations. For the workforce compensation, they can go to, so if you just go to the navigator here, you can see your manager resources, workforce compensation. That will take you to the same screen as we saw in the act as proxy, and then they can do their recommendations as well. So that is in a nutshell what are the different configuration components that we will be doing as a part of this course. Hope you will enjoy our course, but that's all for now. Thanks for watching.